Hi, I'm Steve Bird from Steve Bird Winery and Vineyards in New Zealand. Today we're just going to have a couple of minutes racing quickly through what to expect when you open a bottle of our Manu Sauvignon Blanc. And the wine specifically today that we're looking at is Manu 2019 Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. Now Manu means bird in our Maori language, and the little logo on the front is called Te Manu Tuku Tuku, which in fact is the birdman kite. And that artefact actually hangs on the wall of the New Zealand National Museum. So it's about 6 or 8 feet tall. It's a rather wonderful artefact, and we've borrowed that iconography to represent the Manu brand. Manu means bird in the Maori language, bird being our family name. Hey, so Sauvignon Blanc, perhaps the most famous grape variety in New Zealand. It's 80% of everything we do down here in New Zealand, and the reason it's 80% is because we seem to be able to do it better than most. We tend to produce wines that are, explosively flavoured and have pungently aromatic, and so there's no mistaking them. There, you don't have to be a genius to work out that a Sauvignon Blanc is from Marlborough, New Zealand. It'll just tell you. It'll jump right up out of the glass with its aromatics, and the flavours will be very evident right from the get-go. There's one wonderful thing about Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is, as a consumer, you'll never have to work too hard to work out what the wine's all about. It's very expressive. Okay, let's dive right in. What to expect in terms of the colour looking at Sauvignon Blanc? Well, these wines are made in a relatively simple process. Everything's machine harvested. We work quickly to get the juice away from the skins, so we're not picking up too much colour. We don't want any phenolics from the skins making an adverse impact on the overall wine impression. So for this particular wine, we just use the free-run juice. We don't use any hard-pressed juice. There's no oak in this wine, so we don't have the influence of colour or aroma or flavour from oak. It's stainless steel fermented. It's fermented at relatively cool temperatures to preserve flavour. And to preserve aroma, and to really preserve those top notes of tropical fruit and fresh herbs. So, on the nose, classic lemon lime citrus characters, sort of leading towards pink grapefruit, but certainly not over the top on pink grapefruit. That's one of my great criticisms of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, is just pushing too far towards that pink grapefruit thing. We like that lemon lime citrusy character, that little bit of grapefruit character, but happy for it to be the signature at the bottom of the page, not the whole story. Okay, what else have we got in here? I get a little herbal note, kind of akin to tomato leaf, or perhaps even a hint of red bell peppers in there. And that again is another classic attribute of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. And we retain those sorts of flavours and aromas because it's a very cool climate. Well, when I say very cool, it's moderately cool. We've got a wonderful long growing season, and it means that those more delicate fruit characters and herbal overtones don't get burned off with heat during the growing season. We manage to preserve those right through to the finished wine. As you delve a little deeper into the aroma profile, there is a distinct impression of tropical fruits. And one of the characters I look for when we're doing harvesting is I'll pop some grape berries in my mouth, and if I can taste white flesh nectarines in the flavour profile of the fruit hanging in the vineyard, then I know that that fruit is physiologically ready to harvest. And I almost don't care what the numbers say in terms of its sugar content and its acidity. If that flavour is there, then the fruit is ready to go. What about the palate? What are we looking for on the palate of the Manu Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc? Well, first thing, it's got to be generous. It's got to have generous amounts of flavour, and it's got to be easily accessible. Like I said earlier, we don't want you guys working too hard to have a good time. It should be there and available and immediate. We like to see the wines fresh and crisp. We don't want them cloying on the tongue. We want them crisp, clean, have a mouthful, the tongue is cleaned off, and you're ready for that next mouthful. They've got to be bright and energetic wines. And there you go. That wonderful citrus character follows through to the palate and really draws the saliva up. It makes it really savoury, which we think is a fantastic experience. And then immediately after that, you're getting that little herbal overtone, that little bell pepper hint kicks in, that little sort of grassy overtone or tomato leaf character, and then a big rush of tropical fruit. And that's what dominates the flavour profile as time goes by. Now, the acidity is not searingly acidic, but it is bright. This wine is completely dry. I think something less than 3 grams per litre of residual sugar. So just whatever the yeast can't ferment at the end of the fermentation process. And so the trick in producing this balanced wine is monitoring and controlling the acidity, and that, I think, has given this wine a wonderful, crisp, clean finish right to the end. There's enough body in this wine from relatively high alcohol. When I say relatively high alcohol, it's tipping around 13 and 13.5%. So there's enough body and enough natural extract in this wine that we don't need to have any residual sugar in it. And that body and that extract really helps to construct a palate that carries all of those beautiful flavours all the way to the back of the tongue. Now, that's enough about sort of the immediate impacts of the wine. Let's talk a little about how you're going to drink this wine, when you're going to drink it. For me, any time of the day or night's fine for this wine. It's just a glorious wine to drink. Summertime, wintertime, doesn't matter. But we tend to drink wine in conjunction with food. And the types of food that I would be serving this wine with are things like seafood. One of my particular favourites is ceviche. And you know how they put a bit of lime and a bit of lemon with your ceviche, sometimes a bit of chili, some coriander. That wonderful bright freshness of herbs and the fish and the lemon juice just works perfectly with this wine. Oysters, no brainer. Every time. Oysters. And the tangier the oyster, the better. That'll work well with Sauvignon Blanc. Any green vegetables you can think of. I particularly like salads that have asparagus in them. Artichokes are great. Work very, very well with this wine. So, if you're pairing foods, go for lighter style foods, lots of flavour, bright colours. You know, this wine screams summer day, all day long. But like I said, don't be afraid to pair this wine with foods during winter. Now, behind me there on the bench, you'll see a cauliflower. Tonight, we're having a cauliflower soup with it'll be thickened with cream, and it will have a little weight to it and a little flavour. We're going to put some cardamom seeds in it and various other things to spice it up just slightly, give it a bit of herbal overtone with some green herbs, some cilantro and so on. And we're going to use this Sauvignon Blanc, A, as part of the cooking process, and B, we'll drink the Sauvignon Blanc with that cauliflower soup. And that's a hearty winter soup. So don't be afraid to use Sauvignon Blanc with your winter cooking. Now, you might be wondering why I'm coming to you from my kitchen. Well, at the time of recording this tasting note, we're all suffering the indignity of COVID-19 virus. And today in New Zealand, we're having a very quiet and somewhat thankful celebration that level 4 COVID lockdown has been lifted, and we're seeing our way out of it. We appreciate that in many parts of the world that is not the case. So for all of you people who are suffering the indignity of COVID-19, we raise a glass to you and we are thinking about you. Stay strong. This will come to an end eventually. The wine will always be there. Enjoy. Happy days.